Hello, and welcome to the December 18th edition of the Carlisle Community Forum. I'm Doug Stevenson, a former member of the Board of Selectmen here in Carlisle, and it's always a pleasure to be back hosting our community forum. Today we have a special guest, David Tasto, who's from Helping Hands Home Care, and we'll be hearing from him in a little bit, and we really appreciate him joining us. I would also like to introduce the rest of the folks at the head table. First of all, we have Jean Bagnaschi, who's the president of the Friends of the Carlisle Council on Aging, and thanks for joining us, Jean, and all of the work that you do. We also have Debbie Farrell, who's the Council on Aging Transportation Director, and we look forward to hearing from her as well. And of course, Angela Smith, the Council on Aging Outreach Coordinator, and we really appreciate everything she does for everybody in our community. So to start things off, first of all, I would like to wish everybody in Carlisle a happy holiday season. We got our tree on the common lit last week, and it's starting to feel a little bit like Christmas, especially with the weather that we're having. So to all the folks of Carlisle, we wish you the best in the holiday season, and certainly the best in the coming year. So now I'd like to turn things over to Angela for a quick hello and introduction.
Hi, Doug. Thank you so much, and we're thrilled that you can be with us, and glad that Dave could join us from Assisting Hands. And we just want to wish everybody from the Council on Aging also a happy holiday, and remind people that although we will be closed just Christmas Day, unless Town Hall closes a little early the night before, and we will be closed for New Year's Day, but other than that, we will be there, and people can always leave us voicemail at 978-371-2895. So if this is a difficult time of year for a lot of people, and we understand that. So if you need some help, or there's something that you feel we might be able to support you with, please call us. So I think we should just get right started, and you and Dave start talking about what it's like to get old in Carlisle.
Absolutely. So, as I said, our guest today is David Tasto of Assisting Hands Home Care, and David's originally from Minnesota and came to the Massachusetts area to get his degree in engineering from Boston University, and just a couple years ago transitioned from a couple of decade career in engineering into the home care business. And he currently lives in Wilmington with his wife and 2 children. And we are eager to hear about his business and the services that it offers. So, David, please.
Thank you. I'm honored to be part of the TV forum here today. Thank you very much. So yeah, I did start over a year ago, and in home care with Assisting Hands. Very, very exciting time in home care. But I think the key I want to get across is just that Assisting Hands' approach to providing home care is really about happiness, and driving as much happiness into people's lives as we can, both the clients that we're working with, but also the family members. We do that through communication, excellent communication on progress with our caregivers' notes and feedback to the family members and the client. We have quality controls in place to make sure that our caregivers are following the care plan that we've gone through to start up our clients. But also, it really starts with our caregivers, and the caregivers are key to bringing that happiness to clients. Hiring our caregivers is critical to our business. We go through extra lengths to onboard folks who we would trust with our own parents. And the controls that we have on the onboarding process go from various criminal background checks, national criminal background checks, as we're quite close to New Hampshire here. But also they have to pass an exam, a 104-point exam. And they meet with our nurse to go through clinical exercises to make sure that they're up to snuff. But we want to make sure that there's someone we would trust with our own parents. That's the key thing, is that everybody on our team is someone I would trust watching or helping anyone in my family.
Great. David, on your website, I read a wonderful quote that fits right into what you're saying about bringing happiness into people's lives. And this is Maya Angelou, who said, "People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." And clearly that's something that you've taken to heart as you've developed your business and built a crew of people to help others. So,
yeah, it's that feeling that we provide. We have clients of just the other day, a client called in who normally doesn't speak on the phone and said that I'm a lucky man to have people like these helping me. With his condition and his situation. But he spoke of our caregiver, that he only wants that caregiver coming every time. He loves her and he's excited about what she's able to help him with. But beyond that, it's the bond that they have and the connection. I'm sure this gentleman looks forward to having that caregiver show up a few times a week.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I think we certainly all read regularly about the changing demographics, both in the country, in the state, and including in our town of Carlisle here, where we do have an aging population. People are living longer. I think I read a statistic that by 2030, we'll have the number of Americans over the age of 65 will double. That's a significant group of folks who are potentially in need of various types of assistance. Maybe you could talk sort of specifically about the services that your company offers and how that directly would affect people here in Carlisle, because we know, Angela knows and everybody knows of the number of folks in Carlisle who want to live in their homes. They've lived here for a long time, but maybe don't have the capability of taking care of themselves fully or even taking care of their properties fully. So what types of services do you offer, and specifically how do people access those services?
Thanks, yeah. It can start from just basic things like getting out to get groceries. As some folks, move on, they need help with transportation. Our caregivers can drive either their car or their client's car. If the client still has a car and wants to use their car, that's often sometimes how it starts. Folks generally, and we this is common where it's a hard thing to accept help, but once help is accepted, it provides a freedom and independence that the person might not have had for years. So after kind of getting over that hurdle, helping with some things like just going out to get groceries is a great way to just start how we might be able to help them. But beyond just the transportation needs, we can get into basic companionship, where our caregivers will just provide an interaction and engaging experience, whether it might be just doing puzzles, playing games or cards, but bonding with the client in their environment, in their home, where they want to be. After, including all of this, all the services are included with each of our caregivers. Our caregivers that provide personal care are certified nursing assistants or certified home health aides. And that has given them some training and background to know what type of help is needed and how to perform that help. So they've had clinical experience working with clients, from bathing, dressing, transferring in and out of beds to chairs or so forth, walking around if they just need some help walking around at home or are a fall risk. Some folks, as we all get older, tripping is a common concern. And if there's one thing, as far as statistics you're mentioning, the biggest reason folks aren't able to stay at home or live their retirement where they want to live is because if they've had a fall. So doing everything we can to prevent falls and providing that extra support around the home or in and out of the home is critical to that dream of living retirement where you want to live.
Sure. Could you talk a little bit about how one might transition from having family members assist with caring to where they might have somebody, for instance, your company,
Yep.
Start providing those services? Because I think certainly in many cases the immediate family is the first stop in terms of care, but there are times when there's not the availability or enough time or what have you, or enough emotional capacity to handle all the needs of their loved ones.
Yeah, it is. It's a common situation where a family member might be burning out, and it's a tough situation, especially say a wife is taking care of her husband and they've lived together, they've been married for decades, but now the wife is burning out because of the care she might be providing for her husband. Often we would start in those kind of cases providing respite care, and respite care support is primarily for the person who is already helping their loved one, and it could just be a few hours a day to a full week straight where they just need to get away. They need to decompress and just take care of themselves. It's a very similar analogy to the airplanes. You do need to put your own mask on first, and those care partners or caregivers, the private or family caregivers, do need to make sure they take care of themselves. And even on our team, caregiving, I feel, is one of those occupations that should be treated in the same realm as first responders, in that they're providing an honorable service to our loved ones and helping them through very difficult and challenging times in their own personal lives, but they're also providing help for those family members who are burning out and need that break.
Great. I know you have a very interesting personal story about how you transitioned from a 2-decade career in engineering and product development into the people business, home care business. Maybe take a moment and just tell us how you found your way into this world.
Thanks. Probably like yourself, Doug, I definitely love working with my hands and rolling up the sleeves and getting involved. And that's where I started out in engineering. Working in product development in a few different industries. Started in the semiconductor industry, and then moved on to security industry, protecting our borders and a critical infrastructure in the United States that inspect vehicles, tractor trailers, sea containers for contraband or weapons that might be coming into our country. Very fulfilling role in the security industry, kind of doing right by folks and helping our society. From then I moved on to consumer products, working in product development and working in vacuum cleaners and blenders in a Massachusetts company, but helping folks with just eating healthy through different blenders, that making healthy meals and smoothies. And we're even finding in my role today that smoothies are a big help for getting the nutrients into the elderly who might not have all their the dental strengths that they had before. So making nutrition a big piece is important. But from consumer products into home care was more of a personal family experience. My grandmother was diagnosed with dementia about 5 years or so ago, and my mom was the primary caregiver. My grandmother moved in with my mom and stepdad, and it was challenging, as you mentioned earlier, about just that family caregiver. My mom, shared stories about how things were challenging and what she had to do to support my grandmother with dementia, especially as the disease progressed. The disease did progress, and eventually my grandmother moved into a community and eventually into the memory area of the community. Towards the end, my grandmother needed hospice support, and through her hospice benefit, she was able to get some extra help with caregivers. And my mom didn't know much about what these caregivers could do or what their role was, but she was so impressed, and she spoke back from Minnesota where I grew up. She was telling me over the phone that these caregivers were just so thoughtful, considerate, and they went that extra mile. And I just started thinking that, there's something out there maybe that's really not as well known. And then I was back here in Massachusetts still working in product development. I heard, advertisements about different home care companies and businesses. But I had a chance to meet those caregivers. I went back to Minnesota and actually had a chance to meet them at my grandmother's funeral. Not just did they care to come to her funeral, but they told me stories on how they were able to keep my grandmother smiling in her final few weeks. They bathed her, dressed her, did help for her personal care, but they also told stories about how they were able to keep her smiling and happy in her final few weeks. They did her nails, they did her hair, they dressed her in her favorite blouse, just because they knew that there was somebody's grandmother in her, somebody's mom in her, and their thoughtfulness, consideration for her is what really inspired me. Those stories that they're able to tell, the fact that they still cared for someone and went that extra mile for someone who probably wasn't aware of much of what was going around my grandmother at the time in those final stages of dementia. But on the way back from Minnesota, I thought about doing something more meaningful in my career with my experience, and then really did look into home care and with Assisting Hands, the focus on quality of care, driving the controls that come, with a national franchise was something that really appealed to me.
That's quite a moving story, and like I said, a pretty significant transition from sort of the product world to the people and care world. But certainly show some passion in terms of your desire to help others. And certainly part of what we're trying to do is just what you're talking about, is let people know that there are services and options available, especially for those folks that are want to remain in their own homes, which it seems like many folks do. So that was one of my questions. Do you see that? I don't know if there are statistics or at least anecdotal evidence that more and more people want to remain in their own homes versus going to an assisted living facility or some other type of care facility.
There is a trend. A lot of our clients or folks that we'd meet with do say that, that if there is a wish that they really want is to live their retirement at home. But there are other options out there, just being genuine, in that some folks might like community, the social aspect of a community, and that's what they prefer. But in general, though, we are hearing it, and there are statistics that point to whether it might be a bad experience in a hospital or a nursing home or at rehab or something, but they do find a lot of comfort in homes.
Mm-hmm. And just tell us a little bit about the franchise, because Assisted Hands is a national franchise, and how big, how far, how wide does the company go? Mm-hmm.
So they started, and this is some of the stuff that appealed to me. They started out of Florida, which is a very regulated state in home care because of the demographics just in Florida itself. So they have licensing and a lot of controls and accreditation in place. That's where Assisting Hands started. They've grown since 2007 and are now in 16 or 17 states with about 70 offices nationwide. Mm-hmm. But they've ported those same controls and their model from the state of Florida into all of their offices. So although Massachusetts is not a regulated or licensed state for home care, our approach is that we have all the quality controls and containment and so forth in place to ensure that the caregiver coming into your home is someone you can trust.
Mm-hmm. And tell us a little about your franchise. Where are you based? How many employees and what communities are you serving at this time?
Mm-hmm. So we are based out of Bedford, just down the road from Concord or Carlisle. Mm-hmm. And as we mentioned, we started up over 15 months or so ago. But we have over 100 caregivers now. We really focused on building that cadre of our team members that we would trust with our own parents to be able to match. The key to our success is to be able to find a great match between the caregiver and the client, so that it's not just the care needs that are met, whether the bathing, the dressing, the companionship, or the transportation, but also the personality and the interests. So having that team of caregivers has really allowed us to focus on matching for that personal experience where you can have a bond with the person you're with, similar to what my grandmother had. Mm-hmm. We are now our service area with that group of caregivers we can service from around Winchester area to the east, out to Acton in the west, and up north to Chelmsford and Lowell, all the way down to Natick and Wellesley, Newton in the south.
That's quite an area.
Yep.
Do any of our other panelists have any questions for David? I've got a few more, but I didn't want to not give you each an
You're
opportunity.
doing a great job. Keep going.
Absolutely. You sort of mentioned the personal relationship that is established between the caregiver and the patient or client. Is that the general rule that the same person does the visiting and caregiving? So if somebody's working with your company, is it the same person that comes to their house once a week or twice a week or whatever the interval is?
Yeah, a lot of folks are looking for consistency, reliability, and the dependability of care. And that's those three things are really our priorities. When we're looking for a match, we're looking for somebody who's close by, who we can depend on, that the client will look forward to seeing, depending on how many, like what is the needs from the client. What they might need care every day. They might need around-the-clock care. They might need evening care. Our objective is to minimize the number of caregivers that are helping out, because that provides that continuity of care and consistency of care. And the client can expect what they're going to get. So, minimizing the amount of folks on it could be a small team if you need, around the clock care. It could be a small team that covers, each of the days of the week.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
How do you match up the personalities and so forth? Because as you said, you had one person who would not get on the phone and you had tough time reaching. How do you connect with your aides or your care workers to that actual recipient, the client?
Thank you. Great question. When we interview, we first phone screen, then we interview, and we bring our caregivers back in, not just for the interview, but we have them in for the orientation and training session. We are taking notes about our caregivers to understand who they are. We actually go through them specifically with a lot of attributes to understand their preferences. We have to know who's on our team very well. And their style is important as well. About the speaking, some folks like somebody who's going to engage and talk with them all the time. Other folks, they want someone who's going to be more reserved. When we go meet with our clients, so that's on the caregiver side, when we meet with our clients, we ask questions like, describe someone you like. Describe someone you don't like, right? And it can go from mom to mother-in-law. I'm just joking, but we get a sense and a picture of the person. Do they like someone who's listening to their stories? That can help us understand who might be a good match from our team to their needs. We ask about their interests. Just yesterday, I was speaking with someone who's, knows all the players in the Patriots team, and she watches every game, right? Those are the kinds of things. So when we talk to our caregivers, we're meeting them and learning, is this one into sports? Not that it's a requirement, not that it's right, wrong, or different. Even if you like the Yankees, it's okay.
Well, careful.
There might be someone in New England that might like the Yankees. But it's just asking those questions, understanding who we're working with and their interests, so that we can match appropriately to what their needs are, what their wants are.
Good info.
Great. You and I were also talking a little bit about some special programs for veterans. Maybe you could talk, David, a little bit more about what offerings there are for veterans and programs that are available for those folks.
Yeah. No, we recently launched a new program that helps our veterans get the pension benefit that they deserve for putting in wartime service. Either the veteran or their spouse is eligible under the aid and attendance benefit for up to 15 or so hours a week of care in home. But the application process is challenging. It's not easy to fill out the application. Sometimes those applications are rejected. We've partnered with a firm who specializes in working with the VA and gets their applications approved within 5 months. But they actually have such a high confidence rate of getting their applications approved that they'll start at risk providing the benefit for the veteran or their spouse within 4 to 6 weeks of filling out their application. And it just starts with an 8-item questionnaire to understand, and then that company can work with the veteran or their spouse in their home, call them up. They don't have to go to the VA. So it makes it very convenient for the veteran to get that help that they need.
Great. And you've talked a little bit about some of the services that you provide. Sort of on average, or how often are folks seeing their caregiver? Is it typically once a week? Is there any average or general rule, or in terms of the level of need or level of help that folks are getting from your caregivers?
Yeah, it does vary a lot. As we focus on trying to drive happiness, it might need just 1 or 2 visits a week. Might need, a visit every day. It could be just for a few hours. Could be, like we said earlier, around the clock, where they need some support. They need, different personal care. But, it could be, 20, 15 hours a week. Depends on what that client is looking for or the companionship that they want. Mm-hmm. If there's out-of-town family members, it might need a little bit more help just to keep them engaged, keep their independence and the freedom that they want.
Mm-hmm. And so what are the top 5 things that you're providing? I mean, I think you talked a little about transportation or picking up groceries and companionship. So what are when you talk about the services that you have, what are the ones that are most frequently requested?
Transportation is included. We check with all of our caregivers that they can drive and that they have the right credentials to licenses and insurance and so forth. Transportation is a big one. But we work with folks that have cognitive issues, neurological conditions. It's a growing need in the community, from early diagnosis to the latter stages. The needs can change a lot. Where it might just start out as companion care, but then move into some more personal care. Help with walking or ambulating is a piece. As far as the top 5, companionship is included in a sense with all of our cases, but that's what really builds the bond. We don't look at our cases or our visits just to do a task. We're there for an outcome. We want to drive happiness, healthiness, that type of stuff, where it might be going out and getting groceries and maybe making meals or preparing healthy meals. Often, folks that are alone, they don't want to cook for 1 or 2 people anymore. It just becomes a chore, or, it might just be that their strength isn't what it used to be. So chopping up vegetables is a little bit more of a challenge now. So getting that extra help allows them to have those meals, and our caregivers can follow the recipes that are handed down in their families to, for the holidays or other types of events that they want to have a great meal. So meal prep, transportation, companionship, some of the, just support for neurological conditions, I'd say are the top 4 or 5.
Sure. And what level of sort of medical or physical therapy type care do you offer with your staff? I think you mentioned you had some people who have some nursing training or what have you, but I'm sure there's a limit to what your team is authorized to do or trained to do.
Yep. So our approach is with non-medical help at home, and that works in conjunction with home health agencies or home health companies, where they'll provide the skilled nursing or visiting nurse assistance, but we don't provide the occupational therapist or the physical therapist. But our team of caregivers that are certified nursing assistants are able and trained to help work with our clients to perform those exercises in between all of the health visits from the occupational therapist or physical therapist. So I don't know, I've been through therapy, and I've been told, here, do your exercises, and I haven't myself followed up on all those exercises. So our caregivers are great at reminding and being assertive if needed to help make sure that our clients are progressing. I mean, we're trying, our aim is to encourage their independence, and building their independence, we need to continue in making sure that they stay active. So more on the assistance, not necessarily medical help at home.
Mm-hmm. In terms of paying for these services, because I'm sure that's a question that's on a lot of folks' minds. So you do offer, or there are long-term healthcare insurance plans. Just talk a little bit about how folks might get assistance in paying for the various services that you offer.
Yep. Primarily, it is a private pay business, but as like our standard health insurance does not cover help at home yet. It may at some point, but right now it doesn't. There are Medicare Advantage plans that are coming out with support or assistance at home. As you mentioned, long-term care insurance is another avenue for folks who have long-term care insurance plans. We can work with those insurance companies to do the billing and invoicing and making sure that a lot of the finances are taken care of so that the family members don't have to deal with it, because it requires submitting care notes and so forth just to get evidence of the right care that was put in place.
Good. And then you've talked a little bit about your staff and the caregivers on your staff. Maybe just expound a little bit on the training that's necessary, and as I mentioned to you earlier, a little bit about sort of the mental health of the people who are providing the care to others, because I'm sure there's a set of challenges that come with trying to help others through their physical and emotional challenges.
Two great questions. So on the first side, the training side, we look to have caregivers who are providing personal care to be certified nursing assistants or certified home health aides. And that requires, just to get into the field, it requires 100 hours of training and typically an exam state exam to pass so they can get their certificate. We also, to validate their training when they come on board, we actually ask them to take a very similar test to the home health aide exam as well to kind of validate that they've gone through that basic level of training. But ongoing training, we offer training monthly at our office for all of our caregivers to come in and improve their skills. And we'll bring in partners of ours who are occupational therapists, physical therapists, folks that have worked with stroke victims in the past to help with our caregivers, new techniques on dealing with aphasia or loss of ability to speak. Various topics we work on to help their experience on dementia or other neurological conditions like Parkinson's as well. The ongoing training is a key thing, is actually required by folks who have a certified nursing assistance. They're required to have a certain number of continuing education units each year, and we want to support that for all of our caregivers, even those that aren't necessarily certified nursing assistants. Mm-hmm. Your second question, though, is on the burnout and the mental health state of the caregivers. As I mentioned earlier, it's quite a demanding job, and can take a toll, physical toll, but also just an emotional toll on our caregivers. As we often see with family members who are providing that care before we might start out. But it's draining partially because our caregivers care. So it's emotionally draining. As a person is progressing through their disease, it's hard to see that person, not able to do things that they might have been able to do before. And then, you do find yourself supporting in many different ways. As they, we look for signs during their notes or otherwise, and we have regular check-ins with our caregivers to monitor for this. But, burnout can happen if it's not, monitored. But we often, we encourage, time off. So we limit the number of hours each week so our caregivers aren't working, too long, and they do have time to take a break or spend time with family, including sick time and everything else, so that they do get the breaks that they need.
Great. And what age population generally are you seeing for your clientele?
I think the average age might be around early 80s, but we're helping folks that are close to 100. And but folks that we had a 50-year-old stroke victim that we're helping, and just spoke to me last week about probably not needing any services. But that's a win from our perspective. That he had a stroke this summer, but now he's moving on, and we've been able to get him through his exercises, and now he's not going to require care or support anymore. So it's a wide range. There's no necessarily age limit in terms of who will help, because disabilities don't really discriminate,
Mm-hmm. And earlier you and I were talking about sort of the double-edged sword of people living longer and how that affects your businesses and your business and the services that you offer.
Mm-hmm. So primarily, we're helping the baby boomers' parents at this point. But, on average, folks might start needing help around their early 70s, 71, 72, I think it might be the average age of when folks start needing some assistance. It could just be some basic help. But the baby boomers, the oldest baby boomers, are just hitting that like early 70s right now. And the shift is that we might have to move, or in a sense, we're going to be helping more and more of the baby boomers in the next 5 to 10 years. So, but as you mentioned, the age, is of when we might be, our average age might be increasing still to maybe mid 80s or late 80s. We are seeing folks now that have multiple conditions. So they might have diabetes, but then they also have some heart condition, or they have a neurological condition like dementia, but they also have a chronic heart disease or something else. So because of that longer lifespan or life expectancy, they're not just having one condition, but they're maybe starting to have multiple conditions that need to be managed.
Any other questions from the folks at the panel
This is
here?
great. The one thing I would say is we do have some caregivers who bring their clients to our events.
Right.
So that's something that you can watch on our newsletter and pick out things and maybe bring.
I'm excited to hear more about all the events in
bring
this month.
things,
Yeah.
People too. And David's the statistics person, and I believe he said in Carlisle the number of seniors has gone up 60% in the last 10 years. And right now, it's about 30% of the town are seniors.
Of the population in town.
Right.
So,
And knowing many of those folks, I know many of them want to stay where they are. And
Absolutely.
Your presentation today, David, is very apropos, because I think there's a lot of folks in this community that would be very interested in learning more about the types of services that you have to offer.
The one thing I will say, because we're starting to see more of this, people that are living on Social Security and don't have any other income, I think they have to be cognizant that to get into housing, it's about 7 years usually for senior housing. Wow. And if a spouse dies, your Social Security will revert to whichever one of the spouses is highest. So we're working with about 6 families now that are going to lose their homes because they just can't afford to stay in them any longer. And it's crushing when somebody calls and says, I want to get into senior housing. And we have to tell them, we can put you, we can help you fill out forms, but the wait's like 7 years. So if people are hearing this and you think in 7 years you might want to get into senior housing, then you really should start thinking about applying now.
Certainly. Anything else, David, that you'd like to offer us at this point?
No, thanks for the opportunity to join the program today. Any questions, feel free to reach out. We do help families with, putting those plans in place to age in place. There's a lot of considerations that are needed beyond just the home itself. There's financial, there's other wishes. If transportation to family events, in other states is a piece of it. How do we put that holistic plan in place so that a person can live their retirement where they want to live? So we can help folks with those kind of planning efforts as well. But thanks again for the opportunity, and please reach out to Assisting Hands if any questions.
Right. Well, thank you very much. And I have been to your website, so I'll let folks know there's a great website with plenty of information. I'm assuming if they search Assisting Hands in Bedford, they'll find everything you have and phone number and can track you down and learn more about the services that Assisting Hands has to offer. So we really appreciate you being here and offering all that fine information for the folks here in Carlisle.
Thank you.
With that, we'll transition to some of our local talent here and talk about what's going on in Carlisle with the Council on Aging.
Well, why don't we start, excuse me, with some of our food events, because seniors like to eat.
Because it's getting close to lunchtime, so why?
Excuse me. I suddenly lost my voice. So before I start, maybe I'll let Debbie talk about transportation.
Okay. Well, nice to see you again, Doug, and everyone. Just a reminder, if anybody needs a ride for transportation, to give us a call at 978-371-6690 as soon as you can. Preferably it's 48 hours. Sometimes we can help that day, but not guaranteed. And we do our best effort to help everybody with transportation. So we still are going every Friday on our Market Basket weekly shopping trips. And if you could call us by noon on Thursday to let us know if you want to go. We have a great group that goes, and we're always willing to take more people. We try to limit it to about 8 or 9 because that's a lot between everyone having 2 or 3 bags of groceries and so forth. We do have a little change to our name of our transportation. We've been advertising for a while, the Carlisle Transportation Ride Program, Services Program, I apologize. But we've changed it now to call Carlisle Rides. It still incorporates the first vendor that we've been using for a while that was a pilot program called Flow Transportation. And it's still the same voucher program to help with those if you're a senior and you want to use transportation through Flow, you would contact them, basically giving them a call at 978-602-5606, leaving them the information. And if they can provide the ride, come to the COA to purchase the discount vouchers. It's $3 per voucher to purchase, and that it depends on how many vouchers you need as to where you are going. And you would need round trip, so we would estimate how many vouchers.
And Debbie, they go places we don't go.
They go places we go. Basically, anytime after 4 o'clock, they will go into Boston. If you have a medical appointment at MGH or something, they can provide the transportation. They will take you to Burlington, which we do go. But if you're on the weekend or an evening or sometime that the COA cannot provide the transportation, you can give them a call, and depending on the best effort, they will do their best to help you with transportation. But we also have fairly new the Lyft discount program, which I think Dave has introduced a few months ago, and it works similarly to this. Basically, it's the second Carlisle Rides program now. Basically, if those are familiar with Lyft, it's a ride-sharing program, and you would need to download the app to your phone and set up an account. And then once you do that, contact us here at the COA. You can either call the main number at 978-371-2895 or transportation, which is 6690. And what we are telling people with this discount program is that you will get a little notification that you will pay the first $2 of a particular ride. You're going to get 4 rides per month, single individual rides. We will pay up to the next $10 of that ride, and anything above that you would pay for. Both of these are alternative transportation options to people in the community that the COA cannot help with. But as to the Lyft program, you have to be eligible to be 50 years or older in order to get the discount program, or 18 years older with a disability. They can contact us for any questions. But we do have a number of people who have already signed up for this and are using it, and we do have a couple of seniors who are older and using it and seem to be very happy with it. So what we're trying to do is just give alternative transportation to the people in the community, because unfortunately our hours are fairly limited, and Monday through Friday. The only other thing I'd like to just remind people is that we are now, well, we're not quite in the winter, but we're pretty close to the winter, and it feels like winter.
Seems like winter.
We've already had a lot of issues with winter. That basically, if the schools are canceled, normally all the rides in the COA and events and classes and stuff will probably be canceled. But we'd like people to call our number just to confirm and make sure that we haven't changed the voicemail to say such and such can continue. With transportation, I'll probably reach out to people on a daily basis if something like that happens. But that's pretty much the reminders I have on transportation.
Thank you very much, Debbie.
Okay, so now we'll talk about
Food.
food.
Let's get to the food.
Okay.
Please.
So the first food event in January is the men's breakfast. It's not at its typical second Thursday. It's January 2nd. And Doug, maybe you can come sometime.
Yes, absolutely.
It's at 8 o'clock in the morning. So on your way to work, my husband got dragged into being the chef. And who knew he could cook? So his typical meal is scrambled eggs, either pancakes or French toast, either ham or sausages, fruit, pastry, and coffee, tea, juice. So, and it's all you can eat. And we ask for a $3 donation. And we get a lot of guys that really love it. And there's all sorts of conversations about politics, about what's going on in the world, about electronics. I mean, there's a lot of very, very intelligent people in town that love to get together and talk about different things. And Chuck, who's helping with the recording today, is also one of the volunteers that helps with our lunch, or breakfast, rather.
Angela,
And
you
then-
said the January 2nd?
January
'Cause
2nd.
The newsletter says the 10th.
January 2nd
This newsletter, or maybe
for
I
the men's breakfast?
Yes.
I see it as January 2nd.
Okay, January 2nd it is.
Okay. Now, we also have a coffee, and that's January 15th, which is usually the first week. And in January, that's going to be hosted by Jerry Lehrman and Walter Hickman. And that's also a very nice event. That one's free. You just show up and, again, have a good meal and
Sociable.
the chat, and that's co-ed. We have had a few women show up for the men's breakfast because they like the food, and nobody turns them away. And then we also, and Jean does this, does senior moments. We meet at Fern's the second and fourth Monday of every month. And on the fourth Monday, we have a blood pressure clinic. And we do have blood pressure clinics also at the men's breakfast and the coffee. And so people can come and Fern's, and either we or Bridges, which is an assisted living, provide some refreshments. And you just buy your coffee, and Fern's very nicely give us a 10% discount.
Right.
And then once a month, we also go to Neshoba Tech. Now, Neshoba Tech has a whole culinary arts program, and those kids are really great. So on January, it's January 8th. In February, it's February 26th. And because of our friends' generosity, we subsidize the meal. So you can go get a full meal with dessert and coffee for $5. And we've gotten it so that now we have over 30 seniors.
Wow.
Go to Neshoba Tech. The place only holds 40. Carlisle is taken over.
I've been to your annual volunteer lunches
Lunch.
over there,
You do?
and they need to provide you a room for a nap afterwards after the wonderful meal that we get served. So that's a great take.
And we're still doing the Chelmsford Crossing lunch, which are food provided by Chelmsford Crossing, which they receive a small amount of funding from Minuteman Senior Services. Because we don't have a kitchen, so we can't do congregate meals, so we do this instead. And Chelmsford's Crossing food is also amazing. And we always have programs after our lunches. And for January, we're going to have a speaker talk about rural Honduras. And then our January COA lunch, which is on the 16th and is always held at FRS except in the summer when we go to St. Irene's because they have air conditioning. We're going to do our annual bingo. So everybody's been collecting bingo gifts. So you got something for Christmas that's not really for you, bring it into the COA and we'll make it part of our bingo prizes. Elizabeth Aquaviva does a great job making beautiful baskets full of treasures. So that's on January 16th. And then our second Chelmsford Crossing lunch will be on February 6th. And that's going to be followed by something you may want to come to. One of our volunteers has his doctorate in physical therapy. And he's going to do a talk on adaptive equipment and things that may make people's lives easier.
Sounds great.
So all of those, you can just call us and we'll sign you up. Debbie, maybe you have a few trips that you want to talk about?
We do. Each month, we try to at least do restaurant review trips or some COA day trips for the seniors to socialize, get out, go places, be together. In January, on the 7th, we're going to a new location called the Dream Diner. And I don't know if anybody's ever been there, but it's in Tinsboro. And it's kind of an old-fashioned diner. So that looks like it'll be a fun time.
And they have a gluten-free menu.
They do have a gluten-free menu, correct. So we're going to be going there on January 7th, and they should call the transportation line, which is the 376690 number. And if you can let us know by January 2nd if you'd like to go, the van will take up to 12 people. You can drive and meet people there. You just need to let us know, what you'd like to do. But we'd love to have a group go. Then, on January 22nd, we're going to Ixtapa Mexican Grill Cantina, and we're going to also see the Scottish Mosaic Museum and Library, and I believe that's in Lexington. And I understand that that's a great place to go to see the Masons, I believe it is.
Yep.
And that is a free library, by the way. I don't know if anybody knew that, but that library itself is a free entrance fee. So we're going to go to the restaurant first, and so it sounds like that'd be a fun trip. Well, hopefully the weather will hold out for us on these. So if anybody would like to go, please give us a call let's see, at the same number, 6690. If you can let us know by January 15th. Again, the van will be taking a certain amount of people, and they can let us know, if they want to drive. So when we jump into February, we're going back to an old favorite, Bamboo Restaurant, which is in Westford. Most people are familiar with that. And that will be on February 4th. And that's going to be our restaurant review. If they could let us know by January 28th, that's a good old popular group one that we go to. A lot of people do enjoy that one tremendously. And then we've got one that we've actually done. We've not actually advertised this one before because it's kind of been a last-minute choice of trip. But the Indian Hills Music School, which is in Littleton, they actually do every month what they call a box luncheon. And it's a performance, and each month is a different performance by their students and some of the teachers. And they do two performances, one or twice a month. And we're going to go on the 13th, and we're going to watch and hear the Chamber of Winds and Strings, which sounds like it'll be very fun. So we're actually going to the 1:30 show on February 13th. We do have a limit of 12 people on this one, so it's going to be first come, first serve. People can let us know on February 7th if they want to come. But since we're going to the 1:30 show, they don't serve lunch. They do serve cookies and tea and coffee and all. So we suggest either bring a bag lunch or have lunch before you go. So the van, again, will be taking people, or you can drive and meet us. We'd love to have people come for any of the trips, and that's pretty much what we have programmed so far. But again, they can call the 376690 number or the 2895 number.
Right.
And that's what we have.
Great.
So-
Always plenty. Should we get to Jean before
Yeah,
we run
that's
it?
what I was just going to suggest,
Yeah.
Doug. You read mine.
That's right.
Whoever thought we had the doldrums this winter?
That's right.
Everything to the trips and the food, it's just, I just looked at the calendar. Every single day in January, February has multiple
Right.
activities, and all of them, I can just imagine are fantastic. I've been to several, but I know that I'll sign up for some, especially just to be not housebound. It's a good time.
We had an older retired family friend who said after he retired, said, "I don't know how I ever had time to go to work." And we listened to this schedule here, and I think this is a testament
Now that it was before.
Well, on behalf of the Friends of the Carlisle Council on Aging, I want to remind everyone that we have our annual fundraising appeal. It's still underway. I'd like very much to thank every single person who's already donated and remind those who are waiting to donate that it's never too late. We are accepting donations at Post Office Box 38 here in Carlisle. And just a reminder that your generosity allows the Friends to support the grants that help fund so many of our vital COA programs that help our seniors stay active and healthy. And those programs include exercise and dance programs and blood pressure and podiatry clinics, fuel and food assistance, and on and on and on, as you've just heard. So I basically want to remind people that we also support, with the Gleason Public Library, cultural series that are in many parts having to deal with things like history, music, and religion, held at the Gleason Library. But coming up in March, we have the very popular Jane Blair Art Matters series. Starting in March, on March 13th, Jane will present Impressionism. If you haven't seen her, she's just amazing. It's well attended. I think last year we
To
had
the
about
tune of 100 people.
Wow.
So you do have to register for these through the library. But on March 20th, it will be Post-Impressionism, and on March 27th, Alexander Calder. So January, February, we've seen the calendar. March is getting busy, busy, busy as well. So we do need to remember to support the Friends. We've been very, very fortunate in the past and really depend on everyone's generosity. And finally, I would really like, on the behalf of the Friends, to thank David Klein, our COA director, Angela Smith, our program and outreach counselor, and their wonderful staff, Debbie Farrell, and Linda Carvalho Murphy and Miriam Fleury-Mond, who go often above and beyond. Their days are long and their efforts are tireless, but all on behalf of our Carlisle seniors. We're really fortunate for everything that they do, and having attended local reunions of Friends representatives from various towns, what I hear is, wow, you do all this in Carlisle. And I want to live in Carlisle. I'm not kidding. People have said that. So please do remind your friends and neighbors that if they need help, to let the Council on Aging know, and our friends and neighbors. We should all be looking out for them all the time, not just this winter. So big thanks to the COA, and thanks in advance for your support of the Friends.
Did you have any other quick hits, Angela, before we wrap up?
We're going to go real quick and just remind people that AARP, you can call the Bedford COA or the Bedford or Chelmsford libraries and get help. Better to call soon. Their appointments fill up quickly. They don't come to Carlisle, but we do have permission to use them. We're also doing 2 programs in January and February, one on Alzheimer's disease and prevention with brain healthy eating. That will be on the 14th at the library. And on February 11th, we have a program taught by one of our volunteers on taming Windows 10. So we all have to go through that. We have exercise every single day of the week. It's all in our newsletter. We have 2 knitting groups. We have a book group. We are doing an acupuncture demo for the first time in February. We have a new French conversation group at the library. And we also want to remind people we have haircuts in this very room every 6 weeks. We have outside walking on Thursday mornings when the weather allows, and inside walking every morning from 6:45 to 7:30. And our public health nurse is holding a sort of office hours at the library on Wednesday, January 15th from 6:30 to 8:30. So I think we've run out of time, but check out our newsletter, check out our website, and Happy New Year and Happy Holidays to everyone.
Thank you, Angela, for all those fine activities. And again, thank you, Jean, for everything you and the Friends do for the community and for the older folks in the community. And as you said, we have a wonderful staff here at Town Hall that does so much for our friends and neighbors. And David, thank you so much for your presentation today. And we hope folks have learned what services you can offer as well. And
Thank you very much. Happy holidays.
Yeah, with that, we wish everybody the best in 2020. Thank you.